JD Vance has been having a tough go of it out on the campaign trail lately, and that really just warms my heart because everywhere he goes, and no matter what, he is always saying something that ultimately backfires on him that he then has to clean up, or he's cleaning up Donald Trump's mess because he pushed some conspiracy or said some new crazy statement that reveals his cognitive decline. So JD Vance has been really having a tough go of it no matter where he goes, and that includes the Fox propaganda outlet. And JD Vance went on Fox today, and you would expect this to be kind of a softball interview, but that is not how it went. JD Vance was pressed on some of the bigger mistakes that Donald Trump made this weekend, and when he was asked about one specific issue, one specific question, he really just died inside because JD is so tired of defending Donald Trump, and he knows he is doing such a poor job of it. And we are going to get into that horrible moment for JD Vance, hilarious for us. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, to hit that subscribe button and join the community that we are building on this channel. It really goes a long way, and it means the world to me. Now, like I said, Donald Trump, a lot of campaign mistakes lately, but one of the biggest was his appearance at McDonald's for a few reasons that we're going to get into. But first, let's check out this clip.
What is your campaign's position, or even your position? Did she work at McDonald's as a student in college, or was she lying?
I don't know if there's a campaign position on it. What I find, and I've spoken to Donald Trump about this, what we find weird about this is that Kamala Harris has been able to produce no evidence that she worked at McDonald's, and she didn't even talk about it until 2019 during, I believe, her first run for the United States Senate. So I don't know what's ultimately true here, but it's interesting where the media will try to nitpick and micromanage every single thing that me or Donald Trump has said, and yet they just buy into this narrative from Kamala Harris that she invented 5-6 years ago. Why don't they just do some journalism? Maybe it's true, maybe it isn't, but I know I don't trust the media's lack of curiosity about this issue when they're so curious and nitpicking everything else that the Republican candidates do.
There was a speech.
JD is such a disingenuous liar. To say that the campaign doesn't have a stance on whether or not Kamala Harris worked at McDonald's, it seems to be the biggest issue for Donald Trump in this campaign so far. And while I see a lot of members of the media claiming that this was a great moment for Donald Trump, that it made him look like a normal guy by cosplaying as a McDonald's employee for 10 minutes, what is such a problem for the Trump campaign is when this is reported, when this story is talked about in the local PA area in which Donald Trump did this stunt, it will also be reported that the only reason he was there is because he's pushing the lie about Kamala Harris having not worked at McDonald's when she did, which only makes Donald Trump look like the ridiculous liar that he is and informs people of Kamala Harris's working class background. So it's just a big loss for them and weird for JD to try to defend because, of course, he can actually defend it. All he can do is lie and try to skate the question, which is exactly what he did when he was asked about one of the more inflammatory statements Donald Trump has been making lately about the enemies from within. And when JD Vance was asked about it and then got some serious pushback from Fox, which was shocking, he kind of just died inside. And we're going to check that out right here.
Interviews over the weekend and also throughout the past week, he keeps coming back. He's asked about these enemies within comments. And I've read all of it. I've listened to all of it. It's hard for me to know what he really means about it. But that's not my question. My question is, why is it necessary?
Well, Bill, first of all, Donald Trump is unfiltered. I think this is one of the reasons why the campaign has gone well is because he's not doing a basement campaign strategy. He's not just running on slogans. When people ask him questions, he speaks from the heart. And sometimes that means he's going to talk about issues that the mainstream media isn't focused on. But I think Americans are asking themselves, when we had these terrible riots in the summer of 2020, 20 people died, $13 billion in property damage, why wasn't law enforcement empowered to put down these riots, to reimpose law and order on American cities? That's, to me, what President Trump is talking about here, is that when you have local officials, when you have local rioters burning down American cities, when you have folks like Tim Walz encouraging rioters to go after local police stations, you need to have a federal response that reimposes law and order in this country. That's how I understand his comments is, look, we've obviously got some very important enemies to focus on overseas, but if people are burning down our cities, then of course we have to have a police response to that very basic violation of our right of public security.
He mentioned Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi by name in this case over the weekend.
Yeah, Bill, well, look, I mean, you have Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi who have been really part of weaponizing the Department of Justice against our country. I think what Donald Trump is saying is, look, we are the strongest country in the world. We've got the best people in the world, but we do have some broken leadership. We have people like Nancy Pelosi who's getting rich off of insider stock trades, even as her own country has gotten poorer, who's obsessed, Nancy Pelosi is obsessed with Donald Trump, not with reimposing policies that are going to deliver peace and prosperity for the American people. And of course, like I said, we do have people on the left, not most people to be clear, but some people on the left who are encouraging violent responses to what we believe is going to be a Donald Trump victory in a couple of weeks. That's not okay. And I think it's totally reasonable for the president to point out that, yes, we've got the strongest country in the world, but we do have some broken leaders in Washington. It's why we're running this race.
It's so funny to me. Well, really, it's just sad that Republicans think that they can deny Donald Trump's statements, because the first time Trump said, well, they're the enemies from within, it's Adam Schiff, we saw Republicans like Vance, of course, and Glenn Youngkin say, well, that's not really what he means. And then Donald Trump was asked about it again, and he said, no, that's exactly what I mean. We're going after Schiff. We're going after Pelosi. That's what Donald Trump said. And so for JD Vance to try to spin this as Trump, what were his words? Speaking from the heart? What? Really? Well, yeah, it's because his heart is a black pit of anger. I don't think he has one. And so this is just like the disingenuous response that we're always going to get from JD Vance. But the problem is, for JD, he's not cleaning up Trump's mess. We know what his words are. He can lie as much as he wants, but he just makes himself look like more and more of a liar, which is what he is. And we got to call him out for that. And of course, his opposite on the other side of the aisle, Tim Walz, is doing a great job doing so right here.
Get through to these people.
Yeah, don't listen to us on this. Listen to people who are closest to him. Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said most dangerous man America's ever faced. His chief of staff, John Kelly, a four-star general, said he's the most flawed human being. I did serve for 24 years, and I'm proud that you get called up for state duty during flooding and hurricanes. And as governor, you use the National Guard for domestic missions, called Title 32 missions, or federal missions, Title 10, when they fall under the president. But we have something in this country, starting out with posse comitatus in the Insurrection Act, that doesn't allow for the use of troops against U.S. citizens. It's pretty foundational to our democracy that the person who's in charge can't use the military to suppress their political rivals. But I will say this, there was an attempt to weaken the Insurrection Act after Hurricane Katrina, and myself and Congressman Davis from Virginia worked to make sure we restored those protections. These are constitutional guardrails, and I think what we saw with Senator Vance's answer about the 2020 election is the guardrails are off with Donald Trump right now, and I think we know that. And I think for the Americans to recognize, well, we got through one Trump president, so we can get through another. Look, I'm an eternal optimist. I supervised the lunchroom for quite a few years, so I'm very optimistic. You're either optimistic or dead in the lunchroom. I'm an optimist, but our systems are strained, and the ability to politicize the military has never been tried in this country. He's trying it, so I think it's a legitimate one. And I just tell Americans, if you're tired of that chaos, and I know that Donald Trump's handlers are saying he's exhausted, so are we. Americans are exhausted with the stuff that he does, the chaos. So I think this one is, don't risk it with this. This is dangerous talk. This is the talk of dictators, and I think Kamala Harris clearly understands that the separation and the separation of powers is the genius of this country, and the military is responsible to the Constitution and the American people, not the president.
Governor, I want to ask.
I love that Tim Walz, in responding to this question, is centering the Republicans in Trump's own administration, the former Trump officials, and how they view him, because that's what this election has become so much about, that you don't need to take my word for it, or Kamala Harris or Tim Walz, on our feelings about Donald Trump. We'll certainly tell you and make our argument, but you can also just ask the people closest to him, the Liz Cheneys, the Adam Kinzingers, the Mark Milleys, the John Kellys. These are people who have spoken out against Donald Trump after having observed him closer than almost anyone else in the world. And they know the danger he is, not just to us, but to the globe. Marco Rubio, who was on the short list of Donald Trump's VP nominees this go-around, still doesn't trust him with the nuclear codes. But of course, he's too much of a coward to come out against Donald Trump, but that's a whole different video. But these people know he's a danger, and they also know the people around him are dangerous, and that's why Project 2025 is so scary. And that's why it's so important that we call it out and that Kamala Harris called it out right here.
But Donald Trump is offering something very different, including what he's talking about in Project 2025. And I'll tell you, from the biggest rallies I do to church services, people know what's in Project 2025. Right. They know that it would allow corporations to basically stop protecting the right of workers to have overtime pay. What it would do to take away the independence of the Department of Justice. And as we know, he intends to use it to attack his political enemies. People are very concerned by what Project 2025 would do, which is to get rid of public servants who have dedicated their lives to doing public service and instead putting loyalists in these various agencies so that he can have them bend to his will instead of do the work that is in the public trust.
We know he wants to be a dictator. Voters know he wants to be a dictator. Donald Trump's own administration, former officials, know he wants to be a dictator. He's said it before. Let's just call it out. And let's not have that. I think that's a pretty easy choice. So we're going to keep talking about that choice every single day on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around at the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.